If this is the first one in a Nike shirt too.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Chip Cooper for FTC Guardian and my partner, Alan Cutts. You know, we have had some technical difficulties this evening, but I think we're going to be able to, on a spare computer, actually do a presentation. And we've had several close calls. You probably don't realize it, but in the last couple of years, for one reason or another, the gremlins seem to come out at night for me. And I thought we were going to have to postpone this thing until about a minute ago. So why don't we get going? I'm sort of, as Alan points out, sort of informal here. Usually I'm a little more formal in my dress, but I think you'll excuse me. It's close to the holidays. So Alan, are you ready? Why don't we get moving here if we can?
I'm ready. Let's go. I mean, we've been doing this since, 2014, and this is the first one that we've almost missed, but we didn't, so we're good.
we came that close. I mean, in fact, I gave up, but Alan said, keep doing this, do this.
I'm the one who said, don't you have an old laptop? Start that one up, see if it'll work.
Alan coached me through it, and sure enough, I've got all sorts of stuff piled up on my table, but let's go to share my screen here. And we go here. Hopefully you can see my screen, right? And I'm going to hit present.
Yep,
so
I got it.
Tell me if we're okay. All right.
Yep.
So now we're getting into an update requested by one of our members. In fact, I think it was more than one, probably two or three. And it was also one that I had contemplated doing anyway, either on this last Hangout in November, the last one in 2018, probably the first one, or the first one next month in January. But here we are in December, the last one, and we're going to update our situation regarding income taxes for online sales, specifically involving the landmark decision by the U.S. Supreme Court in the Wayfair case, which overruled the Quill case, which we talked about probably in August, maybe September, that sort of time frame. So let's go ahead and get started, and we will proceed with the update. Housekeeping announcement you've seen many times. It's presented for informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. And we're not affiliated with the FTC, as you obviously know. All right, so we get back into the June of this year time frame, and you see the headline there, U.S. Supreme Court reverses long-standing law on collection of sales taxes. This is from Forbes.com. So that's a headline from the press, and here is the basic idea we just mentioned. South Dakota versus Wayfair, which is the June case, and we refer to it simply as Wayfair, overturned, or the Supreme Court overturned in Wayfair, the 1992 case of Quill versus North Dakota. So really, in short form, the U.S. Supreme Court in Wayfair overturned Quill, and it's going to mean some big changes. So here's the big question. Under what circumstances are online merchants required to collect sales taxes for sales to out-of-state purchasers? And in real short form, the issue is, or the question is, interstate taxes on remote sales or out-of-state sales. What are we supposed to do? What are the requirements? So that's the basic question. So the answer is, if the merchant is deemed to have a nexus or a connection, nexus is a fairly fancy legal term for a connection in the remote state. So let's say you are located physically in New York, right? You have a purchaser of your online service or product, and that purchaser is located in California. Now, if you have nexus or a connection within California, you're supposed to collect sales tax and pay it in to the state of California. That's the basic rule. But the question is, what is nexus really? So that's the title of this slide. Under Quill, you had to have a physical presence in the state. So if you're located in New York and you're selling to someone in California, if you don't have an office or a warehouse or some physical presence in California, then you don't have to collect sales tax. That's the old law. That's Quill, right? But under the new law, Wayfair, the idea of nexus was expanded to include not only a physical presence in California in this example, but an economic contact in terms of sales into that state. So we get into, let's go to the next slide here. So in Wayfair, what happened was the U.S. Supreme Court says if you're having a certain number of sales into California, right, then you have a sort of a cyber presence there, which would be enough nexus so that you have to collect sales tax. So now you have a big problem in terms of do you have nexus in these states? And if you do, under the economic form of nexus, you're supposed to collect sales tax. So one of the things that's really critical here is to understand one big limitation on this new Wayfair case, and that is the U.S. Supreme Court determined that the precise definition of economic nexus by South Dakota was now legal. So if you want to, if you're another state, you need to adopt precisely what South Dakota's rule was on economic nexus. So that's one of the big limitations. So here it is. This is what the South Dakota statute said constituted economic nexus in the state of South Dakota. More than $100,000 worth of sales of goods and services in a year, or at least 200 transactions. So if you're an online business and you're located, say, in New York, and you're selling into South Dakota more than $100,000 worth of sales, or at least 200 transactions to people located in South Dakota, then you have economic nexus there, and therefore you're required to collect sales tax. So that's the basic essence of what happened with respect to Wayfair. But in this particular Supreme Court decision, there was no other guidance provided. And so what we're left with is this ruling very narrowly construed to what the South Dakota rules were that you see at the top of this slide. And there is no uniformity at this time from state to state. So we really don't know how to deal at this time with other states other than South Dakota. So the U.S. Supreme Court did not provide a solution for us that's viable. It only defined what nexus was now in terms of economic nexus, and the rest is to be sorted out either by private enterprise or various states, or possibly by federal statute that makes it uniform from state to state. But the big thing that you need to understand is at the bottom of this slide that there is a huge problem for small businesses, and that's exactly what constitutes our membership base in FTC Guardian. For example, as pointed out at the bottom of the slide, there are 10,000 different tax jurisdictions across the United States, and each one of these could have different rules. So there's a big problem for small business. So you see here a fairly, a recent headline here, time to protect small businesses from internet sales tax rush. This is dated in October of this year. So we have more recently some interest on behalf of some legislators to protect small business from this big problem just mentioned. So there are three potential solutions at this time that are being considered. There may be more in the future, but as we sit here in December, close to year end 2018, these are the three potential solutions for us. And of course, we're focused on small business here. The one is something called SSTP, which is an acronym that stands for the Streamlined Sales Tax Project. Number two would be some sort of tool that private enterprise provides to you for a fee, right? And then number three, an exemption, which is really doesn't exist right now, but probably will, that basically buys time for you as a small business person. And there is a pending legislation in the U.S. Congress titled Online Sales Simplicity and Small Business Relief Act. So let's look at these three in a little more detail. Number one, SSTP is a movement that's been afoot for a number of years here, adopted by 23 states, and they're trying to simplify and modernize and harmonize sales taxes across all these jurisdictions. But this project is still not complete. It's only adopted by 23 states, and it is very unattractive to our small business base, our membership in FTC Guardian. But it's at least a possible partial solution out there, number one. Number two, tools, online tools, primarily shopping carts, because the shopping cart is where you're going to be processing sales. The shopping cart knows who your purchaser is and where your purchaser is located, because that information is captured in the process of processing the transaction, right? And you see here in green a copy of an email that I received about 3 weeks ago from UltraCart. Now I might use might have used UltraCart in another website years ago. I'm on their mailing list, so I got this, and you see the headline from this email I received from UltraCart: managing taxes just got easier with UltraCart. And you see there below, due to recent court rulings, blah, 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 because of Wayfair, we have added some integrations with other services to assist you with managing your sales tax issues. So UltraCart, and I would imagine all the other major shopping carts, if they haven't completed these integrations, which will, provide the tools for you to manage, obviously for a fee, they're working on it right now. So within the next few months, other competitors of UltraCart should have online tools for a fee to help you manage this problem. So as between the first two options here, this one is much more complete now, at least in terms of UltraCart, and it will definitely ripple through competing shopping cart services in the very near future. And then number three, which really has the greatest promise of relief for small business, at least temporarily, until some sanity is restored. And that is this pending legislation in the U.S. Congress. The bill is titled Online Sales Simplicity and Small Business Relief Act. And the purpose is to, as you see in the first bullet, is to slow down implementation of this. And what it boils down to is it provides a bar from states taxing any sales from remote sellers prior to June 1. So it buys another 6 months of time, or it prevents going back in time. But the big one is bullet point number 3. There is a $10 million exemption for small businesses. Now, repeat this again. It's underlined, $10 million exemption for small businesses, meaning that if you generate less than 10 million in sales a year, you're not going to be affected temporarily by this new rule, by the Wayfair decision, right? So I would really be quite impressed if any of our members are in the 10 million plus category of sales, right? I think they would be terrific. I doubt very seriously if any of our members are above that in annual sales. So you're probably covered if this passes, and I believe it will very soon. And this exemption would not continue indefinitely, but it would remain in place until there is some sanity in the marketplace that would be such that small businesses can survive and can deal with this taxation issue. So really, of these three solutions, this one doesn't exist, but probably will very shortly. And we'll point it out to you in a future Hangout when we know that it has passed Congress and been signed into law. The other option that's viable is to pay some fees with your shopping cart service and go ahead either now or in the future once assuming this is passed, but then finally goes away because sanity has been restored. This would be more of a long-term solution here. Option number two, using the tools provided by your shopping cart. So these are the options that you have right now, which we did not discuss in the previous Hangout regarding the Wayfair decision. We just weren't aware of them. So these are really the updates that we're offering now at year-end 2018. But as we finish this coverage here of where we stand right now with respect to Wayfair and collection of sales taxes on remote sales, I've got 5 additional observations. Now, these are not options. You remember there were 3 of those. Number 2 and 3 are probably the ones you're most interested in. But here are some observations about what is actually going on at this time with respect to where we are with the Wayfair decision. Number 1, a lot of states are copying verbatim the South Dakota version of economic nexus. So a lot of states are doing it. And if all the states do it, then everybody would be uniform. I don't know if that's going to happen, but there is a movement afoot in that direction. Number 2, there's some issues that we still don't know the answer to. For example, suppose you operate a Shopify business in a marketplace platform, such as Shopify. Then who is responsible for collecting sales taxes on sales to consumers via Shopify? Is it, for example, Shopify, the platform, or is it you, the small business, selling through the platform Shopify? Right now, we don't really know who would be actually responsible under this situation. And I'm certain that a number of our members are selling through these marketplace platforms. So that's an issue that is yet to be determined by, where we are right now with the new law. Number 3, small manufacturers, and I doubt very seriously if we have many small manufacturers as part of our membership base. We may have a few. They may be the most vulnerable right now in terms of finding, a viable solution. That's a problem for them particularly. Number 4, this is another observation that may well apply to a lot of our members, and that is a lot of our members may be selling online services rather than products, physical products that have to be shipped, right? Coaching services, consulting services, marketing agency services, all sorts of services, right? So if you're selling services, as you know, are exempt from sales tax in many states. So regardless of the Wayfair decision, if you're selling services, you may have a lot of cover simply because you're not going to be taxed at all in any jurisdiction for the sale of services. The jurisdictions that may tax your online services are going to be in the minority. So number 4, at least, is working in your favor if you're selling services. And then number 5, this whole idea of transactions. And you remember in the South Dakota test for economic nexus, we were talking about sales or transactions, right, within the state of South Dakota to South Dakota residents. So, for example, if you have a membership site or a subscription site where you charge an annual fee, but you bill it out on a monthly basis, what are you counting for purposes of transactions or the number of transactions, right? Is it the one sale annually that's counted as a single sale, or would it be 12 because you're billing monthly but selling it as an annual subscription fee? So that's another issue about which somehow we're going to have to get some guidance on in the future. So those are 5 observations about what is either happening now or issues that are yet to be resolved at this time. All right, so what are the takeaways? Number 1, By way of review, Wayfair expands what Nexus means to include not only the physical contacts with an outside state, but also the economic nexus, which means sales. In the South Dakota new definition of nexus, 100,000 plus in sales, or at least 200 transactions in a fiscal year, will get you into the situation where you have nexus in that state. Many questions remain. There's a big problem for small business, as you might realize. We have 3 options, but right now, assuming this exemption passes, this $10 million exemption, which should cover everybody in our membership, we believe it's going to pass, and that's going to buy you a lot of time until sanity is restored. And the final message or final takeaway for you is stay tuned to FTC Guardian. We'll keep you updated. Probably my guess would be sometime around end of first quarter 2019, we'll give you another update here. And the tags you see are Wayfair, Quill, sales tax, use tax, and then Nexus. So that's the end of that presentation. And I'm going to share my screen. And so now I'm going to ask Alan to join us. There he is.
Yep.
So we actually survived. Still
made it.
If you could see my desk right now, I've got a partially functioning screen here, 2 screens that don't function, a computer that's almost falling on the floor here, and a small notebook computer that's got all sorts of little things going on, but we did it.
Yep.
I'm amazed. So, do we have any questions?
Is an online course considered a service or a product, and would it be taxed?
My guess is it's a service, right? I mean, you are
an online course.
An online course. I mean, I guess it would be complicated if you're delivering physical deliverables like monographs or manuals or something like that. But if it's like our online courses where you log in and you watch a video or video replay or you read documents online, I would say it's completely a service.
Okay.
And so the only question there is, are there jurisdictions out there that you're selling into that require you to collect tax? But I think you're going to be okay.
Yep. Yep.
Question.
It says, so where do digital downloads fit in?
Digital downloads, like software download, like MP4 files,
MP4, PDFs. It's a digital download. It's a product.
So the question is, when the question is how about, the question really means, would that be considered a service or a physical product?
Well, I don't know. The question is where does it fit in? And I'm guessing the same. Is it a product or service?
And the answer is I don't really know. And here's why, right? We need to understand that I am not a tax lawyer. I am not. So when I prepare one of these presentations, I have to do some pretty serious research to bring my knowledge level up to a point where I can at least make the presentation. But because I don't practice in this area, my area, of course, is e-commerce and FTC compliance and all the stuff that we talk about 99% of the time here. The tax area is not my area, so I do research. So normally I can answer these questions on the fly because I work in the area. But this one, I don't know. But I can tell you this, anybody who works in the area should be able to answer that question. And I would think that whoever does your taxes, whether you have a CPA, that does your taxes for your business, that person would certainly know the answer. So fire off an email and to that person tomorrow and see what kind of answer you get.
Yep.
But that's why I don't know the answer. It's because I don't work in the area.
A question: is an online digital monthly continuity subscription site in the health niche a service or a product? It sounds pretty much, you just kind of answered that. It sounds like a service,
It does sound a lot like a service, but again, I don't really have that background level of knowledge because
Right.
I don't practice in the area.
Right.
I do research, but that's it.
Question from Edward: can we limit the sales in a particular geographic region to stay under the limit for sales taxes? I'm sure you can.
You can, but I think you're going to be much better off, even if you have to pay a little additional fee for a shopping cart to handle all this for you. I mean, you're better off making sales.
Yeah, but when the sales number was what, 200?
I think that was it.
Yeah, and that would be 200 units for that state, right?
Yeah, for that state.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, if it's California, that's a big state. A lot of people are in there.
California, Texas. But again, if you're a resident of that state and you're already paying taxes or whatever anyway in that state,
right?
If you're doing business.
But the big one is if this sort of this stopgap legislation passes in the U.S. Congress, you can all take a huge sigh of relief.
Right.
Because it's going to be, you're not going to be, I doubt if anybody's selling $10 million a year.
Right.
So that's going to buy you a lot of time. It'll allow the industry to catch up with shopping carts and all these tools. And we'll probably have a much more uniform way of going about things for sales tax by the time that's eliminated. So that's the ultimate interim solution, that zero risk for everybody.
Yeah. And here's Drew says, Kentucky just changed that regarding services. Some are taxed and some aren't. And nobody seems to know for sure, even CPAs. And I know here in my local community of Allentown, the city of Allentown charges me a tax for services. It's a smaller percentage than for products, but because I'm in the city of Allentown, I pay a city of Allentown tax on services. And it's an annual tax. I think it is. It's just an annual tax, but it's based on revenue. So anyway.
But Alan's wife is a tax expert. So anytime he has a question, he saves it up for the dinner table and he gets all of his answers that way.
Yep. Yep. We go for a walk in the morning. I ask all my tax questions while we're on the walk. But you can't bill me.
Yeah.
You can't bill me that way. It looks like about it looks like about it. Question: heard California just got a list of vendors from Amazon. Amazon is getting ready to go after vendors. Any news on this? Something about Amazon doing
Amazon is ready to go after vendors, meaning I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, I know. I mean, one of my companies, American Med Supply, we sell on Amazon, and we have to pay a tax if we ship it to. We have an office in Ohio, and we have an office in Florida.
So that means you have physical nexus in those two states.
In those two states,
meaning that you're based in Pennsylvania. So if you're selling into those two states, because you've got nexus in each, you've got to pay tax, pay the sales tax.
Yeah. I live in Pennsylvania, so we don't have an office here, but we have a warehouse in Florida, and then my partner lives in Ohio, which is where the office is, another office, and we have to pay taxes if we ship into either one of those states.
Right, because you've got physical nexus.
Yeah.
If you're big time and are having a lot of sales, in you may, assuming they've passed the South Dakota definition of economic nexus, you may have an obligation to collect taxes as well. There's too much up in the air right now. It's going to take a while. I mean, it's almost like GDPR, which turned over the apple cart as far as privacy and data security, and you can't just like that turn over that apple cart and get everything set up again. It's just too much stuff going on. And the tax is the same way. It's going to be 2 or 3 years before this is really settled out. We're just in the early stages of it right now, and we're going to keep you updated. So it's a good reason that you're a member here.
Yeah. Heidi posted something. It said you can call or check the website with the state commission for each state that you are. And let me tell you, I did this a number of years ago. I live in Pennsylvania. New York is very close. And I have a lot of sales in New York, a lot of customers in New York area. And because of New York has so many different taxing structures for cities and municipalities, I took that advice and asked them. And it's like they wanted me to pay for every single municipality taxing district. And it was like, okay, I told them I'm not selling in New York anymore. Not that I haven't. I mean, I just like, I backed off because they wanted me to pay every single municipality that purchased. I had to have a taxing structure in place to pay the tax for that.
It's just, it's like, impossible for small business to comply with stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, it was so many, it was too many, way too many. Locations included Nexus. Yes. Yeah. I know when, Amazon locations are considered Nexus. Cause I know when I purchased, we have two Amazon distribution centers in the area that I live in. And when I check out on Amazon, it would always say estimated tax. And the reason it says estimated is it coming from the warehouse in our area, or is it coming from a warehouse outside the area? So I always tell you, you're going to pay an estimated tax of this, depending on which warehouse it comes out of. And then Jonas just asking, what does Nexus mean? Just
Nexus, as you recall from one of the first slides in this presentation, is just a fancy legal term for connection, right? The connection would be physically, if you've got an office, a physical facility there, that's enough of a connection for you to be deemed to have Nexus, meaning you've got to collect and pay sales tax.
Yeah.
Nexus basically means contact or connection.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I think we're good. And we made it through the year, to the end of the year. I mean, it's great. You know, we made it through. We got online. It happened. Are you guys, I mean, I know you guys, you saw me emailing you or texting you through the webinar platform. You didn't see what we were doing in the background for like 30 or 40 minutes prior to logging in. It was like trying to herd cats. It was just, we were doing everything we could trying to figure out what the problem was, and unplugging microphones, plugging microphones back in. Okay, we'll check the USB on this one, check the hub on that one. Try your headset. Let's see if that works. We were going crazy for easily 35 minutes trying to make the whole thing work. And just to kind of last minute, I know Chip had just gotten a new laptop in the last 3 to 4 months or something like that. So I said, you still have your old laptop, plug that in, let's see if it works. And it did. And then as soon as he plugged it in, he said, oh shit, I don't have the slides on this computer and I can't get them. So then yeah. So then we had to get the slides.
The bottom line is I was getting depressed about ending the year on a sour note without being able to get this last Hangout in on time. But it seems like about 5 minutes after we were supposed to start, we got online. And so I'm very pleased that we did. And so if Alan's through, I guess for both of us, we want to wish you and your family have a great holiday season coming up. And I think I mention this every year, but I'll mention it again. Thanksgiving is my favorite because it has the least drama in our family. And Christmas has more drama, but I'm not going to tell you how we did it, but we've eliminated the drama to about the bare minimum. And so I'm really looking forward to Christmas this year. For those, I think it's going to be almost without any drama, or if it's any, it'll be small and easy to deal with. Nice. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and just so you know, we do have a couple of people that look like they're going to be on the webinar tomorrow. Phil, this is a presentation for new sales. It's going to be a presentation about FTC Guardian. It's one of the last ones we do for the end of the year to try to get people to become FTC Guardian members for 2019, and stuff like that. So Chip is going to get his computer working so that we can do this for tomorrow and make sure everything.
I've got all the morning and into the early afternoon to get it all straight. I sure hope I can get it done by then.
Get the correct microphone working, everything else. So, Phil, that's what that's going to be about. And everybody, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we will see you guys in January. Chip already has, I believe, the first 2 months, maybe the first 3 months laid out, right?
And by the way, there's no GDPR. There's some pretty interesting things.
Yeah.
Coaching, we've had two big cases involving the FTC shutting down 2 online coaching companies. So we're getting back into our wheelhouse, which is FTC compliance. More fun for me, maybe for you. So I'm looking forward to it. And from my end, again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, all of that. Have a great holiday. And we'll see you early in January.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night, everyone.